On Chatback today, we are discussing the MMD. Like I said a little earlier, some weeks back, we discussed the National Restoration Party, and today we have the MMD, and in subsequent weeks or months, we'll probably have yet another political party making an appearance right on this very platform. Now, to help me look at what we have prepared for today is the Director of Communications in the MMD President's office, and also the Special Assistant to the MMD President, that's Mr. Raphael Nakacinda. Welcome to the program, Mr. Nakacinda.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lorenzo.
I know we have a lot to look at, and people that probably may not be up to speed with what you are working on as a party will probably take this opportunity to ask you questions in relation to what we will be discussing. But let's look at matters pressing at hand. The 2015 national budget, it was presented exactly a week ago today by Honorable Alexander Chikwanda, the Minister of Finance. What is the MMD's position on the 2015 national budget?
Well, let me first of all begin by saying good morning to our listeners. And I must quickly excuse myself. My voice is a little cocky today. I've been a little under the weather the past few days. Okay. I only hope that I will be audible enough for us to be able to express some of the things that we need to communicate to our people. Answering your question, MMD this time around, under the guidance of the President, decided that when the budget is presented, we needed to put a team together led by our National Secretary, Mr. Muhabi Lungu, who in his own right is an economist, and also sourced resource persons, from people that are competent to help out analyze the budget, so that we can look at it thoroughly, so that our comments on it, and if we were to critique the budget, we will be doing so from the perspective of having understood, the frame of it and the impact it will have on the ordinary Zambians. And having gone through that process, we have come to a conclusion. The party has come to a conclusion that this budget is not pro-poor, is not a pro-poor budget. Actually, it suggests that the Patriotic Front are in a mode of guesswork, because when you look at the things that they promise when they were in opposition and the way they are governing, they are far from the so-called, if I may, for lack of a better word, the vision they seem to have cast for to the Zambian people as the direction they would want to take this country. For example, they did promise that they were going to create more jobs and they were going to put more money in people's pockets. But what we have seen with this budget is that this government has continued with this, what I would call illegal wage freeze. For the past 2 years, the civil service has been subjected to a wage freeze. The reason I'm calling it an illegal wage freeze is because as MMD, in 2001, somewhere there, we had attempted, to go the route of, having a wage freeze. We had actually justifiable reasons to do that, because that time we were fighting, to reach the hippie completion point. But, the trade unions took, the matter to court, sued government, and there is a judgment right now where it was ruled that the government has no right to take away the right, the right to bargain for, the right for the workers to bargain for their wages. Regardless of the difficulties the government may have in, allocating resources, the only way they can resolve the issues of maximizing what they have in their pays is by engaging in dialogue, negotiating with the workers through their unions. So, first of all, the wage freeze itself is an illegal, route that they have taken, because we have a legal, process that was undertaken and was concluded. Coming to the effect that the wage freeze will have on the ordinary Zambians. First of all, for the past 2 years, when you have a wage freeze, it means that people are, their salaries remain at the same level until the time that you are going to remove the cap. But the Patriotic Front have gone ahead, for example, to remove the subsidies, which were meant to cushion the less privileged in our country, particularly the poor, the subsidies on fuel, the subsidies on maize, which has resulted in a high cost, on the basic commodities. Now, by doing so, you are actually, making it difficult for people to survive. You are saying in one vein that we will not increase your salaries. You don't even have a right to bargain for an increase in your salaries. But in another vein, we're going to increase, the costs, of living. That is an unfair route to take, especially for a government and a party that promised, more money in people's pockets and promised that it was going to be pro-poor. So this budget in itself shows the total opposite of what they were trying to promise or what they were promising before, 2011 election. Mm-hmm. Not only that, a few days ago, we witnessed something very, very sad. Minister Kambwiri, the Minister of Youth and Sports, went to Yunza to go and try and shut up the students there. And one of the statements he issued is that the government has no obligation to educate you. Your parents must pay for your school fees. Now, these are people that you have put a cap. You are saying that there is a wage freeze, and then you have made their expenditures in terms of the day-to-day living very high, and then you create a situation where you are not willing, for example, to provide a cushion by way of bursaries for them to have their children in school. Then you say you should also pay for the school fees. So it shows that this government is actually very sensitive, even just by the way they have framed the budget. Now, I may not delve into the technicalities of analyzing this budget, but I'll try and just reduce it to the basic language that we, the ordinary Zambians, would understand what the government is trying to do and what they're trying to provide for us. Mm-hmm. For example, when you look at the budget, they have reduced, allocations to certain very key sectors. They have reduced allocation to the agriculture sector. Now, this is a government that promised that they're going to be a pro-poor government. And we do know that the majority of Zambians depend on agriculture for survival. So when you reduce allocation to agriculture, it means that you are, in a sense, going to reduce, the production levels. Of course, the yields will be low. And to that effect, it will have a tearing or devastating effect on ordinary Zambians. Mm-hmm. So when you also go to the other sector, the education sector, they have also reduced the allocation in that direction. And even in terms of what they have allocated, it's not very clear which areas are a priority to them. The only thing they have indicated is that they are going to allocate funds, for example, to the new facilities they're trying to put up or invest here and so on, which for us, looking at and analyzing the way the PF operate, we see that to be really another deceptive way to avoid taking responsibility on the mess that they have created. Why should you take money to try and start developing something new when you have not been able to resolve the current situation? We have students at the 3 major universities struggling with accommodation, and their facilities are dilapidated. Why not inject funds there to rehabilitate, create enough space there, and resolve the issue of bursary so that people can be cushioned for how to have their children who are eligible to go to tertiary education or to obtain a tertiary education to go to school, because that in itself, in the end, will bring development to this country. So when you look at this budget, it's not proper. Actually, for lack of better words, it's a disaster.
Okay, so that is how you summarize it. Okay, yeah. Now moving on to our next point, right on our program. Now, is MMD's losing of by-elections a sign of dwindling hopes of the former ruling party? Let's face it, Mr. Nakacinda, of the three main political parties participating in by-elections since 2011, the ruling Patriotic Front, the opposition United Party for National Development, and the Movement for Multi-Party Democracy, I think the Movement for Multi-Party Democracy seems to be more on the losing side. We've seen UPND scrapping off seats, the MMD, and the PF also, notching up seats off the MMD. What do you make of this occurrence so far?
I think a good political analyst will tell you that it was inevitable that MMD needed to go through this valley. We needed to...
You call it a valley?
It is a valley.
Okay.
It's a process. When you lose power, when a political party loses power, and it was a party was in government for 20 years, you do not expect that to be smooth sailing, from the day they lose power. Of course, they have to go through, situations, a process of transformation, which in itself has its own, challenges. Change, for a human being is very challenging. Even when you, Mr. Lorenza, if you're married, the day before you got married, possibly your relatives were pushing you should get married, but Lorenza, you should get married. But the day you announce that I have found a wife, I want to get married, you even get shocked that there are some people within the family to say, no, this is not the lady we thought you could choose for marriage, and so on, because change in itself brings about, a challenge. It's a huge, and shocking development for a party to lose power. That in itself had an effect on the machinery of the party structures. And we needed to go through a process as a party that will eventually cause us to regroup, to reorganize, as we have heard our National Secretary emphasizing all the time that we need to regroup, we need to reorganize and re-energize and relaunch the party. Now, that is not the only change that took place. The party president then, President Rupia Banda, also resigned. That was another, dramatic change that took place in the party, and eventually it led to us having a convention where Dr. Mumba was elected as president. Even the election of President Mumba to the position of president in itself was another aspect of change within the party that has its own challenges. So when you look at what the party has gone through, the changes it has gone through, the effect on our participation in elections and the results we have been getting, it was expected. The good thing is that we have gone through almost every major process of transformation into an effective opposition political party, and also a transformation of making sure that we stabilize each other, those that were extremely shocked by the loss in 2011, those that were extremely shocked that the former president resigned, those that were extremely shocked that now they have a new leader, and all those shocks we had to go through a process of therapy, sometimes challenging each other, criticizing each other, and so on. But the good thing with the party is that we have a very strong constitution, and we are strong on observing the rule of law within the party, and that has helped us to stabilize at least the party this far. And we are very hopeful that having gone through all the battles, those I'm describing are only internal issues, but they are external issues. For example, the PF deciding that when they got into government, the first thing they did is to try and cripple MMD's mobility by taking all our vehicles, for example, and without even a proper legal argument. They took in court a certain number of vehicles that they claimed they needed to verify whether they were properly obtained. But the police have gone ahead to even impound vehicles that are not even on the list that they submitted to court. And we've been trying to write to IG over that matter for the past 2-3 years, and there has not been any response. So there are all these illegal, we'll say illegal processes that the PF have used, to try and, diminish, the fortunes of the party. Not only that, if you do remember, there was an attempt to deregister the party. They brought, all kinds of bills. The registrar said you need to pay 400 million. I think at some point there was a NAMPSA saying you need to pay 800 million, and all kinds of, of bills that they brought. So even those external, challenges or battles that we needed to fight also had an effect on the performance or the process of reorganizing the party. So that's how come our performance has not been very impressive. But now that I think we have gone through every challenging, milestone and crossed it, we are at a stage where the party is getting stabilized. And when a party is not, stable, even well-wishers, people that support the party, both financial and otherwise, are reluctant to put their money there. They are reluctant to put their resources, whether it's material, or any other resource that they want to put in to make the party forward. They will possibly demand that you stabilize first. You make sure that there's sanity in the party. That's when we can invest money. Because if you invest money in a party that is not stable, of course, the logical thing is that it will just go to a waste. And so they will demand that you stabilize. And that is what we experience. But in the process of our well-wishers, people that, support the party in terms of finances and so on, demanding that you stabilize, the issues of by-elections, the issues of engaging in political activities, they do not wait until you stabilize. The by-elections were, and unfortunately, the Patriotic Front have gone on a rampage to create an unprecedented situation of us holding close to 23 by-elections in 2 years, something that has never happened in this country. So, while we're dealing with these internal issues, and dealing with other external factors, we also needed to participate. We may have salvaged 1 or 2, seats in the process, I think, which is commendable, in the sense that if we do not participate, maybe we may not even have salvaged 1 or 2. So the mere fact that under very difficult circumstances we participated and salvaged some of the seats that we did is commendable, and it must be looked at in that sense. Of course, there are people who are saying, no, it means that the leadership of Dr. Mumba has failed and so on. That is malicious. I want to submit that if it wasn't for the resilient and focused leadership of Dr. Mumba and his team in times of trouble, in turbulence moments, this party by now would have already been wiped out. The wishes of the distractors of the party, the detractors of MMD, would have come to pass. But thank God, regardless of the battles we faced, the leadership under Dr. Mumba, the NEC and the provincial leaders, the district leaders, the constituency leaders have remained resilient, in fighting to defend the existence of this party. And at the stage where we are an emerging ship. It's like a situation where a ship was sinking and all of a sudden it begins to emerge again. That's how come now it has become an attractive party that people, are talking about the possibility of this, possibility of that. And I think we're just going to emerge and sail through, in a stronger way to face the next election.
Don't you think to a large extent it could have been down to how the party conducted itself in the previous general election, which attracted this flurry of petitions to make it unprecedented, Mr. Nakacinda?
No. I beg to disagree to a certain extent. Mm-hmm. The reason is when you look at the grounds for which some of our seats were nullified. For example, you nullify a seat for like Chipata Central, for example. The candidate goes to his own church and he gives an offering. And that offering is turned and twisted to become a corrupt act, in a way suggesting that you are corrupting the congregants, and I can stretch it, corrupting God. it's very unfortunate. But you see, in the face of the law, sometimes you can take something really that morally does not make sense. But the law, in its in interpreting it literally, may mean that if somebody proves that you gave some money, and if they view it and argue it intelligently that that was corruption, it's possible for a nullification to be, effected. But what we're saying is that the same PF who seem to have raised the standard on issues of corruption were doing worse things than the things they were complaining about in the course of law. Honorable Mtolo gave an offering of, I think, less than 1,000 kwacha. While the former Secretary General of PF went to Fera, for example, where there was a by-election, and gave an offering publicly announcing of 20 million kwacha then, or 20,000 kwacha. So the question we're asking is that what standard are they using? They have a different standard for MMD and a different standard for themselves. So those are things that we are saying it was a deliberate political ploy to preoccupy the opposition, particularly the MMD, with dealing with issues in court, because, of course, court cases are a cost. They've been a cost to our candidates, our members of parliament. Some of them still have bills to pay with the lawyers and so on. And instead of effectively participating in the party activities, they are trekking to court. They are looking for money to pay lawyers and so on. It was all calculated to make sure that the MMD is kept busy with peripheral issues that are not, developmental in nature, both within the party and even in our contributing to providing checks and balances. That is what the PF put up. And the good thing is that with all their, calculated moves, God has been gracious. The party is still there, and the party is beginning to get reorganized. In the next few months, as the leadership has indicated, the target is that in the next 6 months, the party should be up and running and ready to face the next election.
Okay. All right. Those of you that have questions, keep them coming through via text message. I'll be getting to your thoughts in just a moment. We also open lines for you to call on 0978 390 390. That's 0978 390 390. And then we'll be able to get you at a push of a button. Now, one more question before we catch a breather, and then on the other side, we will continue. Does the MMD have enough money or funds to win elections in the run-up to 2016? There has been concern that the party is running out of money. How do you respond to those assertions, Mr. Nakacinda?
I think the difference between MMD and other political parties is that MMD is not an individual political party. It is the only party that has thrived or made efforts to institutionalize itself by making sure that the success of the party is a sum total of the contribution or the efforts of the collective. If there is anything negative, whether anything that we may describe failure, it is also a sum total of the lack of effort of the collective. When it comes to issues of funding, MMD depends on, one, its members. That includes the president. From the president to the lowest organ of the party, everybody is expected to make every effort they can to make sure that the party has the necessary resource, to engage in every political activity that is necessary in preparation for the election and the election itself. So what is it that generates that kind of contribution? It is a good manifesto. It is the good policies of MMD. And it is, the programs that we put in place. Those are the ones that we sell to the members and the general public. And it is when the general public are convinced that the policies of MMD and the manifesto of MMD and the way the MMD is structured and the leadership in MMD, when they look at the tribal balancing and so on, And the way we conduct ourselves, even when we face challenges, the way we resolve our challenges, do we resolve them in a democratic manner? Are we a people that are inclined to the rule of law? Those issues are the ones that the people of Zambia and beyond analyze and make their decision or make a choice to support MMD. So when it comes to funding, people want to reduce this issue to an individual, for example, the president. But those who want to debate it from that angle are just being malicious and being petty. MMD from 1991 has, been financed not by an individual, but by the well-wishers, the members of the party, and those who believe in the values that MMD espouses. So in terms of funding, we are okay for as long as the Zambian people are there. We are okay for as long as the members of the party are there. And I can assure you, across the country, the members of the party are there, and the Zambian people are looking out to MMD to see it properly reorganized and rebrand itself as the process started, just after Dr. Mumba, was elected president. He took the party to a retreat where, the party reflected on some of the issues that people did not like prior to the election, and generally actually examining particularly the 10 years of MMD having been, the last 10 years of MMD being in government, and made sure that certain things that they needed, the party needed to adjust, the party needed to change, were faced squarely, and those changes have been effected. Those adjustments have been, effected. What is left now is to be able to present effectively, sell the rebranded MMD to the Zambian people. That opportunity has not been given yet to ourselves because of also the way the PF regime has been conducting itself in terms of the application of the Public Order Act and the way we have been interacting as political parties. It was not so under MMD. Under MMD, we encourage dialogue, but under PF have an attitude as though opposition political parties are their enemies. Maybe it's as a result of their insecurity, because when you talk, the way they respond, you are even shocked. Do these people realize that the opposition actually are there for their benefit, so that they can be the eyes for them to see areas that their two eyes may not be able to look, to look in the direction that their two eyes may not look, things like that. So because of the way they have conducted ourselves, we have been inhibited. I'm sure you remember that our president has been arrested several times for attempting to even just meet his officials. One time he went to pay courtesy on the chief, and Dr. Mumbo, the president was arrested for what they called unlawful assembly, and he was going to court several times. And most of our leaders have been pushed to court. But of course, 2 years, 3 years down the line, all that zeal that PF were trying to exhibit to try and use the police and so on, they have realized that the law is not backing them. The law is actually against their activities, and therefore we will have the opportunity to engage the Zambian people again.
Today we are discussing, we are having chat back with the MD, and in case you have questions in relation to what my guest is highlighting, feel free to bring them forward. I'm talking to the Director of Communications in the MMD President's Office and also the Special Assistant to the MMD President. That's Mr. Raphael Nakacinda. So in case you have questions for him, feel free to bring them forward right on this very platform. Now, as we make progress, Mr. Nakacinda, there have been assertions. I know some people are trying to call in. I should be getting to the call in just a moment. There have been assertions that the MMD and the UPND have been having a skirmish in terms of failing to coexist. What do you make of that?
Well, I think I'll try not to betray, the position of the president and the attitude of president towards other, other political parties and other political leaders. We as MMD really do not regard UPND as an issue because they are not in government.
You mean they're not a factor?
Well, the issue of them being a factor or not should be left to the Zambian people to decide. But for us, our focus is making sure that we provide checks and balances to the party that is in the dock, and in this case, the Patriotic Front. I think it would be unfair for people to ask us to turn our guns on UPND who are not in government. It's an unfair, question to ask, or an unfair situation to demand of MMD. It's like somebody would want to ask us a question on whether a plastic chair is better than a sofa for a opposition political leader. It's not for us to make a decision. It is for the Zambian people to make that determination. As far as we're concerned as MMD, Dr. Mumba as our president can sit even on a stone for as long as he's with his people. So you're asking questions that are not really our primary focus. UPND is an independent political party which is also called upon to provide a unique, approach in terms of providing checks and balances. We also have our own unique way of handling the issue of providing checks and balances based on our ideas, based on our ethos as MMD. And in providing checks and balances, we also explain to the Zambian people what we stand for and what we intend to do if we're given an opportunity again to govern.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Smart Garukara says, is Rupiah Banda ever going to come back? And if so, what will it mean to Dr. Mumba and the MMD at large? His question is in line with a question that I actually have for you next year, where there have been assertions that former President Rupiah Banda might make a comeback to active politics. What do you make of that as the MMD? And are those assertions to be believed, or is it anything to go by?
I think the media have also not helped in analyzing this issue. Sometimes you ask a question on or ask for answers on a matter that is not yet on the table. For example, when you say that what do MMD make of Rupiah Banda coming back and so on, that suggests that the debate about Rupiah Banda coming back to active politics is synonymous to coming to MMD.
So he'll come back, but not to MMD?
Well, we can't determine that for him.
Okay.
The issue of whether Rupiah Banda has a right to come back to active politics is undisputable, and both Dr. Mumba and his leadership we do not engage to debate that, because that squarely remains within our former President Rupiah Banda's jurisdiction to determine. Now, I must say, because people are debating in different forms and all that on this matter, Dr. Mumba has kept on guiding the leadership and all the people who have a tendency of coming either to him or to go to the former president to go and express whatever view they may have on this matter, that above all, we should not be emotional on this matter. We should remain sober on this matter. Because when you become emotional, it's easier for you to make mistakes. Now, why that position? Because, first of all, it would be erroneous for us to demonize the debate of people talking about Arabic coming back to active politics, or indeed to demonize the former president if at all at some point he said he was going to he wants to come back to active politics. The reason is simple. When you are a football analyst, when a player is in the game playing, and it so happens that the coach decides that he will substitute that player and puts in a new player, and the new player that has been put in, they begin to score in their own goal instead of scoring in the opponent's goal, like the PF have done. Of course, the player that was substituted begins to feel that what was the reason for me to even be substituted.
What do you mean when you say the PF are scoring an own goal?
Wow, looking at their performance, really, instead of developing this country, they were promising more jobs. They were promising more money in people's pocket, but it is the opposite that has happened. We were just talking about the wage, the wage freeze. We were just talking about the fact that these people have not created jobs, apart from casual works, in a few sites where there are construction works going on, which many of them were initiated by, the MMD. But what I should say in dealing with the issue of what you have raised about the former president coming back to active politics. What I was saying is that naturally there will be that feeling, that frustration of saying that I was substituted for what? If these people are scoring in our own goal instead of scoring in the opponent's goal. The onus is on the players yet to be reintroduced on the pitch to assure the one that has been substituted that we are able to score and we will be able to change the game. We're game changers and so on. But in terms of dealing with this matter in a substantive manner, I must say that history has a way of repeating itself. Has a tendency of repeating itself. MMD has found itself at a stage that UNIP also found itself in the process of rebuilding itself. And where a former head of state, people began to call for his return and so on. In terms of handling this matter, we are blessed as MMD that there is that history. And we will draw wisdom and lessons from there to make sure that we do not repeat the mistakes of UNIP insofar as handling the matter of debating the former head of state. Dr. Mumba as an individual, I must say, because being a special assistant and director for communications, I practically more or less live with him. I know his heartbeat on this matter. He has a personal position based on principle. First of all, to honor and respect former heads of states. In this case, the former head of state, Mr. Rupea Bwezenpanda, the former head of state, President Keke, and the would-be former head of state, Mr. Michael Chirufya Sata, in 2016. It is a decision he has made. Why? Because you cannot expect that when you have taken over a position, you begin to verify and fight, your predecessor. He is total against that. That's how come Dr. Mumba has withdrawn himself and has encouraged the members of the party, the leadership, to withdraw ourselves from debating this issue of the former head of state, because there is always a temptation to go beyond certain limits. And that position, unfortunately, is cast in concrete in the sense that regardless of the comments that will come from the former or the way he conducts himself, Dr. Mumba will remain respectful towards him, will remain inclined to dealing with this matter in a civilized manner. There are people who say, no, you are using kids' gloves, you are what and so on, trying to, instigate a blow-up and within the party. We have considered such instigations either from those going to the president, Dr. Nevas Mumba, and those that are going to the former president, Rupea Banda, in that fashion to actually be detractors of the party. Because President Rupea Banda and President Nevas Mumba, they have a very good relationship. I mean, I don't need a good relationship to an extent where us as assistants and people around them are irrelevant, because they can interpret each other's actions in the correct manner. So in this case, the issue of President Banda coming back to politics is not an issue that is yet on the table to be discussed. The only thing is that people are entertaining and asking questions because they are itching, especially the detractors of the party, even outside external forces or external agents. There are opposition political parties, for example, that are hoping that if MMD can get into a blow-up at this particular point, fight and so on, and gets more destabilized, then their chances to get, or their path to get to power, will be made easier. But I want to assure the Zambian people, to assure the members of MMD, that the MMD under Dr. Mumba's leadership, we will not give the detractors of the party, the detractors of democracy, the pleasure to witness a blow-up or a fight between him and the former president. And I must reiterate, like I'd said before on this fora, it's sad that a few weeks ago, apparently I was even misquoted, on when I was analyzing this issue, that I was suggesting that it would be foolish for the former head of state to be allowed into politics or something like that. What I said was that it would be foolish for MMD not to learn the mistakes of UNIP and repeat the mistakes of UNIP. In this case, is as so far as handling this matter. Maybe I can elaborate. During the UNIP era, people began to make calls. This one says, no, we want KK. Others say, no, we want, was it Msokotwana or something, the one that was, president at that particular time. In no time, the party was split. It had two camps. And even if KK, the former president, with all his connections, maybe more connections that the former that we have, came into office, there was a difficulty because of the way the matter was handled. In this case, we will not allow that the party gets divided as a result of this debate. The good thing is that UNIP and MMD are not the same. MMD has a democratic, inbuilt democratic process that allows divergence views, allows opinions to be discussed. But every opinion, every matter that is being discussed will be subject to the provisions of the Constitution, will be subject to the rule of law as prescribed by our Constitution. So there's nothing that really scares MMD or maybe warrants that MMD eventually will go into oblivion because of this debate. MMD debates anything and it resolves any matter. There's no too sacred a matter that MMD cannot resolve because of the inherent inbuilt system that resolves problems on its own.
Okay.
I think that's the comment I can make at this particular point.
All right. Okay, so the number is 0978 390 390. Let me have people now to call in. 0978 390 390, and then we'll be able to put you through at a push of a button. So in case you have questions, feel free to call in now, and my guest will be able to respond to your comments right on this very platform. All right. Now, at 10:25, let's get our very first call. You're through to Chadbach. Your name and where you're calling from?
Hello, good morning, Lorenzo.
Good morning. Is that David?
Yes, how are you, my brother?
Very well, thanks.
Okay, the guest, how are you this morning?
Good morning, Mr. Devin.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the way you are articulating there, but let me also say, Lorenzo, that if there's any party that I myself as a Zambian appreciate is the MMD. I think they did a number of projects that are benefiting people even to today. We are still feeling just what was done. Despite certain areas where maybe they have their own shortcomings, but I think going by that judgment, I think they are taking the part on the parties that have actually through Zambia. Then I want to comment also on the issue of Rupiah Banda bouncing back as in politics. I think for me, I would advise that let's respect these people that have served this country tremendously. Let them rest and take the advice of law. If you are failed as MMD to identify the potential candidates that can actually spearhead the political things, I think to advise the big man that we have got a lot of respect for him. Let him rest. It's time for him now to enjoy the fruits of his labor. Don't bring him back in politics. It will just, end up outside, seeing him outside maybe misfiring. That's my advice for them this morning. I'm enjoying the program. Thank you so much.
Thanks for coming through. Okay, your comments of the last caller, Mr. Nakacinda.
Well, only to say thank you for the advice provided. Every opinion expressed on matters that concern MMD are taken seriously, and I believe even his advice will be, taken in that context.
Okay.
And want to thank him for appreciating MMD and what it has done. And I only hope that we've gotten to a season now that the Zambian people are beginning to realize that what the PF promised and the story the PF told for 10 years against MMD is not true. Now
let me get the next call so that I have you respond to quite a number of them. You're through to Chadbach.
Hello.
Yes, your name and where you're calling us from, madam.
My name is X.
Yes, go ahead, Lady X.
I'm calling from Dora.
Okay.
I think some of the times you don't talk about on behalf of somebody. Dr. Banda, he has the freedom to come in the active politics if he wants to. We are not going to decide on Dr. Banda whether he wants or not. If he has the freedom to come back. And then you always talk about our party, is so united. After saying all those, tomorrow we find the fight. Why do you talk on behalf of other people's opinions? Because there hasn't been a peace all the time in MMD, in PF, in UNIT. These things used to come up. So just say what you want to deliver to the people. That is enough. Every party that came in power promised people something. But have we seen these things happen all the time? So you think about it. God knows what you are talking there. Thank you so much.
Thanks for coming through. Okay. All right. Let me try if we can get another one. 0978 390 390. That's 0978 390 390. You're through to the program.
Hello, I'm from Murundola.
Come again with your name?
Yeah, I'm from Dola.
Please go ahead.
Yes, I'm just advising my brother there that MMD will never come back. So let him not waste his time. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for coming through. What do you make of the last two calls, especially the last caller who says MMD will never come back, Mr. Nakacinda?
Well, that's a confession of, I think, a person that is politically inclined. Actually, from the tone of his voice, I can tell he's my brother. Omunene, MMD la kuchokera mupawa. You may wish it won't come, but Tuagujogeram 2016, we are reorganizing ourselves. With the lady, I think what she said that we cannot decide on behalf of Arab is true, and I did indicate that remains within his jurisdiction to make a decision. And I'm sure the reason why he's listening to people who are debating on this thing is ultimately to make an assessment, what decision he needs to make. Mm-hmm. And we will not be part as the current, the leadership of the party to try and either instigate or to do anything on this matter. Mm-hmm. But I think we have confidence in the nobility mm-hmm. and the able judgment of the former president on this matter. Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's get some more. 0978 390 390. That's 0978 390 390. You are through to Chadbach.
Good morning.
Yes, your name and where you're calling from.
From
Please go ahead.
Yes, I wanted to ask the guest what they are going to do about the constitution if they bounce back into power. Then the other issue, I wanted to know what they're going to do on top of it.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much for coming through.
Thank you.
All right, I hope you got his questions, Mr. Nakacinda. Let me get another one, 0978 390 390. That's 0978 390 390. You're through to the program.
Hello, good morning.
Morning, your name and where you're calling from?
This is Emmanuel from Lusaka.
Go ahead, Emmanuel.
Yes, please. I wanted to find out from Mr. Nakacinda why should he talk about it? Maybe the PF, the PF promises, or maybe any other person. Why can't he just tell us what the MMD would do for us than him? Because the PF are not there, the UPND are not there. So let him just concentrate on MMD. What are they going to do for us? Thank you.
Okay, thanks for coming through. All right, that's Emmanuel there. One more, and then Mr. Nakacinda comes back. 0978 390 390. That's 0978 390 390. You're through to the program.
Hello?
Yes, your name and where you're calling from?
Yes, this is B
Bill, is that Mr. Lorenzo?
Yes, please go ahead, Bill.
Former Monze boys, Bill.
Oh, okay. Former Monza Boys. My old school. Okay.
Sitting on this topic for the first time.
Okay, very good, Bill.
Yeah. I would like to find out what Mr. Arabi would say to the foreign countries where he's been advising that people should retire honorably. Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, please, especially the recent statement from Marawi where he said people should follow him as a fool to retire honorably without causing any problems, referring to former President Joyce Banda. That is a question directed to Mr. Nakacinda.
Okay.
And are we saying now he has come back to active politics? Let it confirm for the people of the city. Thank you.
Thanks for coming through. Okay. All right. Okay. That was Bill. Then there was Emmanuel. All right. How do you respond to them? Particularly Emmanuel, who says, why can't you concentrate on MMD policies that will change, or that will be for the betterment of Zambians, rather than talking about the PF and the UPND?
No, I think let me start with the other earlier caller who are talking about the constitution and the removal of subsidy. What are we going to do about it? There has always been goodwill, from MMD insofar as the enacting of the constitution is concerned. Of course, it took long because we inherited a constitution that was left to us by our colonial masters via the UNIP regime, and there were a number of issues that we were tackling. But eventually, we reached after 10 years of tweaking the constitution here and there, we reached a point under Monawasa that it was resolved that we needed to do a complete overhaul of the constitution, and the process began under Monawasa, and it continued under Arabi. It was, of course, under the auspice of our former Vice President, George Kunda, who was also Minister of Justice. When you look at the way the PF conducted themselves now over the Constitution and the way the MMD did, we were very sincere. We communicated effectively the difficulties we were having on certain processes, the difficulty we were having in constituting some of the demands that the people were making. We were not being arrogant to say that you can't, even trying to behave as though the Zambian people are gullible. We said it's lost. How can a document be lost between a few individuals that were committee members and one individual who was justice minister? Now they are talking about it will be released at a particular time. So that deceitful way of handling important national matters of the constitution, you never saw it in MMD. And when we're given an opportunity to get back into government, you never see it. We, went through the entire process, creating a platform for which the Zambians would speak. Representatives were drawn across the country from every sector into what we call the National Constitutional Conference. They spoke to the draft or the collection of the Mungomba constitutional process, and eventually came up with a draft constitution, which was taken to Parliament. Now, this fact many times is not highlighted, because it implicates, two political groupings, and many people avoid to comment on it. But really, what transpired is that the document which the UPND participated in the NCC, to speak to it, to contribute in the clauses that were put in that document. Some of the MPs of the Patriotic Front MPs participated in that process. When the document went to Parliament, these two political parties decided, for political expedient at that particular time, to shoot down the document. So you can't blame MMD that went all the way as to want a constitution to be enacted in a transparent manner and say that they are not willing to give the constitution. Given an opportunity again in government, the issue of the constitution will still be a priority on the table of MMD, especially under the new leadership of Dr. Nevers Mumba. He has the issue of the constitution at heart. If you've seen his thrust in terms of his engagement in politics is to do with changing the way politics are done in this country. And it starts with the laws that you put in place. And not only the laws that you put in place, it also boils down to the character of individuals, because laws are made by men for men. So if the men that have made the laws don't have the character to follow through the very laws that they have made, eventually they make the laws to break them. So he is emphasizing that we need good laws, but we also need good people, in the political arena to provide leadership for this country. In terms of the subsidies, it is MMD that reintroduced subsidies, on fuel, on maize, because the approach of MMD is to apply ourselves in practical economic policies that will benefit the ordinary Zambians. We are private, driven. Our policy economically is private driven economy, but we also have not hidden the fact that the government would intervene here and there to make sure that whilst the private sector is in charge of distributing funds based on the market forces, the government will intervene to make sure that the ordinary Zambian is cushioned, hence the subsidies. But those subsidies were periodical. We had a projection that after a certain period of time, by the time we're coming to consider removing or reducing the subsidies, the Zambian people would have been lifted from a certain level of self-reliance to a certain higher level of self-reliance, so that they can survive without subsidies. But this government, which first of all promised that it will be pro-poor, they come and remove the very feeding bottle that the poor were depending on. That is a subsidy. You make it extremely difficult for the poor people to survive in this country. It is unacceptable. So with the MMD, I do know that as far as MMD is concerned, we're going to apply ourselves, given an opportunity back into government, into practical economic steps that will benefit the Zambian people. Like somebody said, I think it was Dr. Mba saying somewhere, that we don't mind the color of the cat for as long as it can catch mice. We don't mind, we don't care what they will call the steps that we'll take, provided it benefits the ordinary Zambians. And that's the approach we're going to take.
All right.
And, in terms of Emmanuel, he says, what will MMD do for the people of Zambia and back into government? I must say that in the next few weeks, the president is going to unveil, the party's, plan to the nation. We have deliberately for the past 2 years not engaged in that level. Because we wanted to give ourselves an opportunity to analyze the performance of the PF. Of course, the first year, they were giving an excuse. No, we are not able to do this because MMD. We are not able to do this because of MMD. The second year, they were still singing that song, though in a weaker version. Now the chorus does not, nobody wants to hear it. So if they say we are not able to do this thing now because of MMD, people will say, you are just trying to deceive us. So this time around, that they PF are to be seen for who they are. This is the time that we're going to be creating a contrast between the performance, first of all, the performance of the PF so far and the performance of MMD, even if it is just 3 years of Arabi against the 3 years of PF. That is enough contrast for us to establish whether the PF are performing or MMD was better. And beyond that, we have the advantage also to cast the new vision under a new leadership for this country. And that vision is coming in a few weeks to be presented to the Zambian people. And that is the vision that will be communicated and sold across the country. And I believe that, like the president has directed, that when all these administrative issues are concluded and we begin to communicate the message of MMD away from the few issues that were faced in the past months, I'm sure the Zambian people will know clearly what MMD intends to do. Because we have seen under PF that the biggest problem PF has is lack of vision. The Bible says that without a vision, people perish. Other versions say without a revelation, people have no restraint. When you look at the chaos, and the lack of coordination, just after the presentation of budget, we saw a banner headline, Shamenda does not want to be the defender of the wage freeze. The question you ask is that, Shamenda, where was he when the budget was being prepared and put together? So the lack of coordination within this government shows that there's no vision. Because when you have a vision and you are pursuing a specific vision, it does not mean that everything you do will be pleasant to the people. Sometimes the people will be confused with the actions that you take. But if you know where you're going, you will saw through the discomforts of people, and when you arrive there, then you can be able to unveil to say, this is what we meant when you said we'll get you there. But these, they are guessing. They tried to bring about the SI 133 and SI 55 on law. Along the way, they noticed that it backfired. They changed and so on. So it is this guesswork that we have to stop. With MMD, we have a blueprint. We have people who are capable to provide leadership just at the press of the button. It has a clear team that can take this country forward.
Let me get the last 3 calls for today. You're through to the program. You're through to the program.
Hello, good morning, Mr. Lorenzo.
Good morning, Mr. Shepherd. You can go ahead, please.
Thank you. The man is there, the big man there. Good morning.
Good morning, sir. How are you?
I'm very fine, thank you. Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, I have got a concern, the 2 questions. Myself, I'm not a politician, but I'm just a concerned resident of Zambia. I'm very much concerned concerning the problems that we have in Zambia, the land langos. We have seen some land langos in Zambia which have brought even some deaths to some areas whereby some people are being killed, like what happened there in what area is that? The name has just gone. Yes, where people were killed there, and even in Kitwell, the demolishing of houses. So as MMD, what are your plans to see to it that these land langos come to an end? That is my first question. The second one is understanding. If people are trapped in different areas, they want development. Are you going to be also a government of not understanding what people are crying? Because when people are crying, which means there is an evidence and they need a proof to understand to it that what you campaign is what you deliver to the people. Are you going to deliver exactly what the people are going to tell the people? If and you are because MMD delivered something. We are very sure that they are going to deliver. But in some areas, they haven't done much according to what they campaigned. What about you, MMD? When you come back, when you bounce back into power, are you going to deliver what you are going to campaign to the people? Thank you. Over from Dora.
Okay, thanks for coming through, Mr. Shepa Sihubwa. All right, 2 last ones, 0978 390 390. That's 0978 390 390. You're through to the program.
No?
Yes, your name, please, and where you're calling from.
Hello, this is Frederick Lorenzo.
Go ahead, Frederick.
I want to find out from the panel. What is it that are you going to do now if you get back into power? That it didn't do any. It was not get through. What message are you going to convey to the people that you are going to make the people of Zambia proud? Thank you very much.
Okay. The very last call, 0978 390 390. That's 0978 390 390. You're through to the program.
Hello, good morning, Mr. Lorenzo.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm okay. I'm fitful. Good morning, panel.
Good morning, sir.
Yeah. You know, sometimes me, since I born, I never find the former political party, former ruling party to come back in power. And in Zambia, it can't happen. So right now, you are calling Mr. Rupia Banda, former president. That is not the way to come back like the MMD to power. No, there is no chance. And believe me, please, just find the other way. If you don't have proper candidates to put in MMD to go and bounce back in 2016, I think go and join the other oppositional party like Strong or UPNC, not like MMD, and never come back. That is the end of MMD. The way you see Unipi, that same like MMD. You never come back.
Ono mudara kamundu uhira hondo. Adindumweba nina.
It's gone. All right. Let us start concluding now as you respond to the last cause, Mr. Nakacinda.
Mr. Is it Shepherd?
Shepherd, Sihuwa.
Shepherd. He's talking about land wrangles. What we've experienced under PF is very sad. And, of course, there were elements under MMD because we want to be as truthful as much as possible. Where cadres, we want to do certain things with impunity and so on. But you notice that under MMD, there was political will to cave that scourge. Under PF, it was like the leadership actually unleashed the cadres on the people in the name of political benefit. And it ended up seeing us with deaths and so on. MMD coming back into government, there are reforms that we had already started, particularly on the land issues, which I think have been halted by the PF when they came into office. And right now there's a process of tweaking, that process of reform that, given an opportunity getting back into government, it will be followed through, possibly with a few adjustments, so that we can have a proper system, both at traditional level in terms of traditional leaders, as well as Ministry of Lands and the local authorities in the distribution of land or allocation of land to the Zambian people. He also has raised an important issue of listening to the people. Right now, if you've seen the approach MMD is employing, let me say, Mr. Lorenzo, when it comes to choosing a political party to vote into power, we should now, especially that we're in the Jubilee, we have worked 50 years as a country, and God is closing one page, opening a new one. We should be able to scrutinize leadership and political parties more deeply. Look at each and every political party. How is it conducting itself now that they are in opposition? Even those that are in government. Is there any stifling of views, say, for the ordinary members of the party? Are they allowed to express themselves? Because the way they conduct themselves as opposition leaders becomes a reality when they're in government. You cannot expect that the government and power will change a person. I tell people that really, even people that condemn Mr. Sata, for example, are being unfair to him, because Mr. Sata has been one of the most sincere politicians this country has ever, witnessed. He has never hidden of his undemocratic tendencies. He has never hidden of his inclination to violence. He has never hidden in terms of his changing of position on issues that he talks about. That is a fact in the sense that we have heard him speak. Now, we still went ahead and voted for him and voted for the Patriotic Front. The issue we are bringing to Zambian people now is that examine MMD on the basis of, first of all, its conduct and the characters of the leaders in that particular political party, because that is what will become a reality when we're in government. If Dr. Mumba does not listen, if his Secretary General does not listen, he is untruthful, he is deceitful, then you would expect that when they are getting to power, they'll worsen, in terms of that aspect.
Okay. Mr. Nakacinda, I would like to appreciate you to come through to the program to talk about matters to do with the opposition political party. So like we did, we'll probably have another political party come through as well to discuss and have chance to also highlight. All right. So in conclusion, in about a minute, how do you wrap up, Mr. Nakacinda?
Well, it's a Jubilee time, and I want to think on behalf of the President, Dr. Nevas Mumba, to take this opportunity to wish the Zambian people and the members of our party, his leadership. He has already done this, I am aware, privately, to write to our members, to the leadership, to wish each one, with their family, God's richest favor and blessing in this Jubilee. Of course, Jubilee speaks of restoration. Restoration of maybe things that you may have lost, in this case, in the past 50 years. It's an opportunity for us to start afresh. It's an opportunity for us to, manifest forgiveness or forgive others and seek for forgiveness from others. And it's an opportunity for reconciliation. So we hope that this Jubilee will give us an opportunity as a people to reconcile, to reach out and embrace others, even those that seemingly were working either against you or doing certain things that were injurious either to your person or to the cause that you're pursuing. I think if we can emerge united as a country after this Jubilee, it will be a great joy to the president of MMD and to the leadership of MMD and to all of us that are pursuing the cause for which MMD exists in this country.